Hello, it's Ren Presents time. I'm your host, Ren, and today I wanted to tackle a subject that's in the news. That's all over the place. And that topic is Mary Sue. You see it all over YouTube, all over the internet. Hashtag time's up. Hashtag me too. Hashtag Mary Sue. So what exactly is a Mary Sue? And is it being properly used as it's thrown about from one side of the internet to the other? Let's have a look. This term seems to have sprung up in response to Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, and specifically in reference to the character of Rey. She comes on, it's a girl heading up Star Wars, and it's not the first time that's happened, but in the movies, it's the first time. And people start going, hey, Rey is a Mary Sue, in reference to her insane abilities, how good she is at everything, how she has no apparent flaws or weaknesses, and is generally a wonderful person. The name Mary Sue has gone on to be hurled at pretty much any woman in the action genre that takes a leading role. Furiosa from Mad Max Fury Road is often called a Mary Sue. Captain Marvel, which hasn't even been released yet, is already being called a Mary Sue. So what is it? What is it with this term? What does it mean? The term initially sprang up in the 70s as a direct response and a satire of abysmal fan fiction. 70s, you had no internet, you had no Google. All you really had was submission of quote-unquote fan fiction to fill in the gaps, to satiate your love for various things. And Star Trek, newly in syndication, was making the rounds and was becoming a big phenomena. So there was all kinds of Star Trek fan fiction going on. People imagining their own scenarios, their own formulaic plots, writing them down and submitting them into the general consciousness. What tends to be the case in fan fiction, and I did this too when I was 10, was, well, Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock are pretty cool, but I have in mind a character that would blow their nuts off. I have created a character called Field Marshal Wilbur Levy Jones Smith, and he's a lot tougher than Captain Kirk. He's had sex with lots more women than Captain Kirk. He's much better looking. He's fought the Klingons. Well, Captain Kirk would be pissing in his pants if he'd done half the exploits of my guy, Field Marshal, I don't even remember what I said, Field Marshal Wilbur Levy Jones Smith. And that's fan fiction. You have the canon characters so that it's recognizable as some sort of pop culture item, and then you throw in your character that you've created for your fan fiction, and this character just rocks. And back in the 70s, writer named Paula Smiths came up with a very short satire on this very topic, and it was called A Trekkie's Tale. Very short, just a few paragraphs long, but what it had was a kid named Mary Sue. And Mary Sue came up through the ranks. She was the youngest graduate of Starfleet Academy ever. She joins the Enterprise and quickly outperforms Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and Scotty single-handedly. She soon takes command of the Enterprise. She captures Kirk's heart. She out-Vulcans Spock, and then dies a hero. And they even name a holiday in her memory, Mary Sue. She was meant to be a satire on fan fiction and on the hyperbole of fan fiction, where your made-up character is way tougher than anything that's ever preceded it. So with that in mind, what is a Mary Sue? Per Paula Smiths specifications, which is how this started. 3 things. A Mary Sue is a female character who outperforms all other characters in a given platform. Second, a Mary Sue is a female character who has skills and abilities that are way out of joint with her particular backstory. And 3, a Mary Sue is a female character who exhibits near flawless traits. Let's take a look at Rey from Star Wars and see if she exhibits any of these or all of these. First topic, a female character who outperforms all other characters in a given platform. Let's see. Well, Rey is pretty tough, and she even gets tougher in Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Whether you consider this movie canon or not, whether you accept it as a piece of Star Wars lore is irrelevant. You can't call a mulligan. It's there. It exists. Just go to Best Buy and you'll see lots of them sitting on the shelf. Rey is a scavenger, a scrap seller on a desert planet called Jakku, or Tatooine 2, as I sometimes call it. And with the meeting of this innocuous little robot, BB-8, Rey starts showing remarkable skill. She can pretty much outfight anybody. She can fly the Millennium Falcon way better than it's ever been flown before. She's able to do things to the Millennium Falcon that a guy flying it for the last 50 to 70 years never figured out. She has incredible Force powers, despite never knowing a thing about the Force or having no specific training. She outfights a Sith wannabe. She Jedi mind tricks people from the get-go. She saves pretty much everybody in this film multiple times without needing an ounce of help from anybody else. So, given that, Rey does appear to have a check mark in the first category for a Mary Sue, a female character who outperforms all other characters in a given platform, in this case a movie. Now, in case you're wondering, there is a male version of this, although it didn't spring up organically with the original Mary Sue. It came later, but that is the Gary Stu, or the Michael Stu, as it's sometimes known, a male character. Who is a Gary Stu? Some argue Luke Skywalker is a Gary Stu, but is he really? Does he meet these parameters? I would say the quick, easiest one that comes to mind is Steve Segal. Take a look at any of his movies. It's always the same thing. Steve Segal is always at a superior platform, morally, ethically, spiritually, and physically. He pretty much kicks everybody's ass as he makes his way to the buffet table. Not a bad guy will ever put a glove on Steve Segal. He sleepwalks his way from one movie to the next, which is why he is now a DVD straight-to-video king. You don't see a whole lot of movies with Steve Segal anymore. It's why the Steve Segal restaurant Chicago went tits up. That's why he's generally reviled among action characters, because it's just boring. There's no dramatic tension. to anything Steve Segal does. You know exactly what's going to happen. He's going to go, and through editing, he's going to look a lot skinnier and faster and tougher, and he actually is. Nobody's going to put a hand on him, and he's pretty much just going to sleepwalk his way to the finish. Gary Stu, which is why Steve Segal sucks. Next topic, a female character who has skills and abilities that are out of joint with her backstory. That's the second criteria for Mary Sue. Ray grew up a scrap seller, a scavenger on Jakku with no appreciable skills or training in anything, yet she can do all these incredible things. She can fight, which, living the life that she's lived, that's not out of joint necessarily with who she is. She might have a lot of brawling and street skills, desert skills, if you will, but those wouldn't help her in flying a spaceship like the Millennium Falcon. They wouldn't assist her at all in the Force and using the Force and its various methods, and it wouldn't really make her much of an expert with a lightsaber, which she turns out to be. And it's only through coincidence, which is rife throughout this film and the film that followed. These Deus Ex Machina moments when, things just inexplicably happen. So she would have handed Kylo Ren his knobs had the ground not conveniently split between the two of them so they couldn't fight anymore. So she's at point C in a hero's arc, in the ABC process. The hero begins their journey. The hero undergoes a quest of some sort, and then the hero triumphs. So she's already at point C when we haven't even started point A. And in Star Wars, there's again, a very convenient and inscrutable piece of plot armor known as the Force, where you can explain away pretty much anything. Oh, she obviously can use the Force, possibly better than anybody. And that's an argument that could be made. But after, 6 movies? Well, I'm not counting the last 2. 6 movies, innumerable comics, books, videos, and other media, TV appearances, holiday specials, and so forth. Even the most casual of Star Wars fan has a pretty good idea what the Force is and what to expect from it. And the Force being inspired by Japanese tradition to some extent, from the Seven Samurai and various other Akira Kurosawa works, is a skill you can use, you can tap, and you have to have a natural affinity for it. You have to bring that spark with you to the table, but that's all it is, just a spark. It's like a beautiful statue deep inside a piece of wood. The statue is there, but in order to get to it, it must be brought out. It must be carved out. Your abilities with the Force has to be nurtured and grown and fertilized and cultivated into a thing. You bring it with you, but through hard work and through training and through study and through dedication, you mature your abilities with the Force. You cultivate it. Just like if you're an incredible painter or an amazing singer, you might have these talents, these skills, but you're going to need help bringing them out. In Rey's case, none of that happens. Everything is for free. Everything's just given to her, which is why in many cases she is a polarizing character, in some cases a repellent character. It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem like she earned anything or has been properly initiated. I was in the military, and basic training is basically a huge initiation process. It's like, oh, you're gonna be privileged to a lot of things, but first we're gonna put you through hell. It's because that's the way it's always been done. Rey doesn't seem to have to go through this. She could forego that step. She doesn't have to do the drudgery. She's just She goes right to the fame and fortune taking. Finally, the last trait, Mary Sue is a female character who exhibits near flawless traits. So Ray has no weaknesses or flaws that I can think of. And most people, when they go to read a book or watch a film, they are willing to accept a lot. If you take someone on some implausible swashbuckling adventure in space where none of the technology that's presented will ever exist, and when your vehicle that you're in is acting more like a horse than a piece of machinery, you should be saying, hey, that's not how space travel would work, or what happened, how can this be, how can this ship do this? You really don't question that. You just let it go. Like, well, I'm here to be entertained, and I'm here to watch an adventure yarn, and I'm not gonna quibble the details like that. Although the last Star Wars movie forces you to, since all of a sudden gas is a consideration. All of a sudden hyperspace can be used as a weapon when nobody else seemed to have thought of that in the how many thousands of years hyperspace has been around. You don't really think of that until it's put right in your lap. But one thing most viewers, most readers will not accept is a poorly written character. And Mary Sue, as presented by Paula Smiths, is just that, a poorly written, very lazy character. It's just one that's just wonderful for no particular reason, and one that has no human frailties. That's what you want to see in a character. You want to see them grow. That's the whole point, is observing this person's growth. It doesn't have to be a monumental growth, but some sort of tangible, cogent change from the beginning of the story to the end. How has this person bettered themselves, or how have they gotten worse in some cases? How has this character improved themselves? With Rey in Star Wars, there's nothing to improve upon. She's already perfect. She's like the idyllic child, the noble savage. In a couple of interviews, Daisy Ridley tried to explain away her motivations by saying she just wanted to do the right thing. What the fuck does that mean? What is the right thing? If you're a scrap seller on a desert planet, the right thing might be getting 3 squares a day, or making sure you're properly shoed and clothed, have access to water. That doesn't mean you're traipsing off with a robot to fight some neo-Naziistic splinter group trying to enslave the galaxy. That seems pretty reachy as far as your motivations. I'm gonna go fight the First Order when I haven't had any inclination to do so previously, but I'm gonna do it now. No real motivation. There's no chink in the armor. Everything she does, she excels at. She doesn't have any phobias, any foibles. She's completely pedal to the metal, guns blazing, balls to the walls. There's no room for her to grow. She can't become better than she already is, other than to make her a goddess, which she already is. You could pull her back and say, she has a fall from grace, like a la Anakin Skywalker, and becomes evil, but that doesn't happen. There's nothing remotely compelling or interesting about this character. Just like Steve Segal in his walkabout films, you know that the screenwriters are so invested in her success, she couldn't do anything but succeed. And that's just a very badly written character. And that makes her seemingly check off all 3 boxes. She is in the classical utterance, a Mary Sue. Now, as with all things, this term gets tossed around a lot on the internet. Just like any term, like the term troll comes to mind. When a troll is supposed to be someone on the internet who is looking to pick a fight, looking to throw shade, looking to be a general nuisance. That's a troll. While the term has expanded to basically anyone who doesn't agree with you or has a differing point of view, and they make it known in a comment section, right, in a review of a film or a TV show or what have you. Somebody has a dissenting thought. Oh, you're a troll. That's not what that means. There's nothing wrong with giving your opinion if it just doesn't if it doesn't happen to agree with the consensus. That doesn't make you a troll. It just makes you have an opinion that's not popular, but that's not trollish. If you are out there just trying to stir up the waters for no good reason or to pick a fight, then that's a troll. But if you just didn't like something, even though everybody else did, no, get past yourself, people. And so the term Mary Sue anymore gets thrown around, and basically every female character in the action science fiction genre in a leading role gets called a Mary Sue. And that's not fair. That's not accurate. Furiosa from Fury Road, Mad Max Fury Road, was called a Mary Sue. But is she really? Furiosa isn't just a lone warrior. She needs a lot of help along the way to returning to the Citadel. She needs the help of Mad Max, or she wouldn't have succeeded. She needs the help of the War Boy, or she wouldn't have succeeded. She gets into a fight with Mad Max, and that fight was tailor-made for a victory. He's got chained to the War Boy and to the door of his car, and she's got all the concubines there to help out, which they do during her fight with Mad Max, but she loses. A Mary Sue does not lose a fight, especially to a man, but she loses. And by the end of the film, she has a healthy respect for Mad Max, and he has a respect for her, even though he leaves. They have seen each other as formidable people, as worthy people, and that is growth of some sort. So Furiosa is not a Mary Sue. She's tough, she's hard-bitten, she's a girl, and Fury Road is basically her story. Doesn't make her a Mary Sue. The same with the Captain Marvel movie. Hasn't even come out yet. Just a few trailers, she's already being called a Mary Sue. She might just very well be, but until the movie comes out, gotta withhold judgment. She might be a wonderful character. You never know. You never know. You gotta keep your mind open. Doctor Who, the current Doctor, is played by Jodie Whittaker. It's often called a Mary Sue, even though I don't know if that's a proper usage of that term in the Doctor's case. She's politically correct, she's woke, she's got an agenda that her showrunners are pushing, but that doesn't make her a Mary Sue. She doesn't really do much of anything, as far as I can tell. She doesn't really fit these criteria because she's not just a self-contained character. She's the embodiment of all the doctors who came before her. She has skills and abilities, but they're not out of joint with the 50 years of backstory that Doctor Who has. So you can't just eliminate that. That's part of her character, even though it plays no role in the series. Still, it's still there. So just remember these things. Put things to the trial, put these characters to the test, see if they actually are a certain thing or another. If they are, call them out. If not, don't. Use the terms correctly, and we'll be better for it. So anyways, this is Ren Presents. I am Ren, and until next time,